Good blessed Monday to you. It's been raining here, lots and lots of rain, but I thought I'll put on my little wet-proof clogs and come out into the garden just for a wee bit of a walk. Bring Jack out. Oh look, there's a pigeon up there. No, it's not a pigeon, it's a crow, I think. So almost all the leaves now are off the trees. I think the ones that hold on to them a little bit longer are the beech trees, like these. And there's an oak tree over there that's quite sheltered and it's got some leaves still on it. Carpets of leaves all over the ground. So I went over to the post office this morning and posted off masses and masses of books. All the books that were on the sideboard there in the sitting room, I've posted them off. So I've kind of cleared the decks, which needed to be done. Thank you for all your comments on yesterday's video. They were very reassuring, I must say. And I suppose there are times when I do actually, maybe I am too hard on myself at times, but that's my nature. I'm very driven. I've always have been very driven. So I sat and ate lots of wholemeal toast last night, and this morning I've got heartburn. I've been walking around with heartburn all morning. So I've just been sipping spring water just to help dissipate it, you know. Now, actually this is something I must share with you. You think you don't get a lot of, things done in the garden during the winter months. But can you see what I've done here with the edge of the path? This is Senecio. See? And it grows very, very well from cuttings. So you see the Senecio bush there, just on the other side of that archway. I just took lots of cuttings off that because it had to be trimmed back anyway. And as I cut them, I just cleaned the leaves off the bottom of the cutting and just inserted them into the ground. So as long as they have enough light, they should take. Now they should have enough light because I'm going to be just cutting back some of these bushes over the winter months. So gardening and designing a garden and putting a garden in place can be as easy as that. Just takes minutes. I'm quite sure wherever you live, in whatever part of the world you live, there are shrubs around which you know, or maybe you've been told, will grow easily from cuttings. So there we go. Worth sharing that. Of course at this time of the year as well, just coming up to the midwinter solstice, the leaves are off the trees, autumn is behind us, we're facing into winter. All gardens will look and even feel a little bit messy, but within that messiness is a huge propensity for life and abundance. And of course the tidying up times can be very therapeutic, and it's great to go out and tidy the garden a bit during the winter. What I do though, when I'm cutting back, I do try to leave piles of cuttings hither and thither, because I think that when you're tidying up the garden at this time of the year, if you can actually imagine what it's like to be a small mammal, or a little bird seeking a little bit of shelter on a stormy night. You know, it's almost like getting into the Beatrix Potter books, you know, where you do actually empathise with those tiny creatures. I've always done that, and I think that's what's made working with Mother Earth so magical, because it doesn't take a lot of effort on my part just to be right down there, very, very close to the actual soil, and imagining myself as a small creature. I think that's where that empathy, you know, for Mother Earth begins. There's Jack. Jack loves these wee walks. There's the wind started up again. The garden is incredibly wet. But then, having said that, this time last year the garden was incredibly dry. And in fact, all the photographs and videos from last year show the leaves blowing around and the kind of crispiness of it all. So that's how it goes. So what I'm going to do, because it has been raining, and rather than complain about the rain, sort of celebrate the abundance of it. So I'm going to walk along the water courses here in the garden and just enjoy being near the water. So look at the way the ivy has just sort of come down there from the trees. So if we go down this way, so we'll start here at the spring well, and you can see, because the rain has been so heavy, there's actually some water flowing into the spring well, and that would just be runoff from the hill that I've just walked down. But this little spring well looks innocuous enough, doesn't it? But then when you look down here, look at the flow of it. It's amazing and beautiful. So I'm walking quite slowly because I don't want to be slipping and sliding all over the place. So this is the squelchy part now. I do try to make sure that there's a good spreading of gravel during the winter months, because of course it'll take years and years just to build up the paths. Paths don't happen overnight on wet adobe ground. You have to continually and seasonally work them, you know. So look at this. Now this is the this is one of the drains, if you like, or swales. You'd call them a swale in permaculture, because swales follow the lie of the land, as they say here in Ireland. So the curvatures, you know, and just in the same way as that stream now has followed the curves and cut its way out through a natural course. So this swale, it's fairly straight, but it's actually, you can't see it here, it's coming down from an angle where the bedrock on the other side of the land here has risen to the surface. But it's draining very, very well. And someone asked me about the sand that's been washed down here. Well, you see, daub daub, which is like clay, wet clay, is partly comprised of sand. So as the water washes through the soil, it will take the sand out with it. And the sand then is deposited at places where the water slows down. So that's the first thing. Second thing, of course, is that all the stone here at Bealtaine appears to be sandstone. And sandstone, you know, you guess it, sand in it. And then someone else asked, do you not have all your soil been washed away? Well, no, I don't. Because when you look at the curvatures here, you're looking at places where the water can slow down and can deposit silt, and which I regularly, on a yearly basis, dig out and put up on the banks to help drainage. We'll just follow this water course all the way around. I must cut off some of the bottom branches of these trees so I can walk more comfortably over towards the water. So that's just flowing, it's flowing quite gently there, there's no real speed on it. And you can see there's a lot of sand there. And then little bits of gravel as well. And because I've dug, the water course is quite deep, and it's below the level of my neighbour's field. It's actually helping to drain his field. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to follow this water course all the way around. Now you can see here, look, where I've actually put stones down into the waterways. And again, that helps to create little dams, and you'll get silt in behind those dams. So it goes down along here where all the brambles are. And then over here. So it actually cuts round here at an angle. And then this is where I got John with his digger then to dig out in a kind of a stream formation, so it's not a straight line, a little waterway that takes all that water then into what's called the Silt Pond. And again, those of you with a map will know exactly where I'm standing now, because I'm pointing the camera towards the Silt Pond. Now this is quite an amazing waterway, because you can see there's a lot of gravel down there. And you think, well, where's all that gravel come from? And then you look up, you know, to kind of understand the topography of the land, which is a very interesting thing to do in permaculture. If you look up, you're looking up at a bank, and that bank is quite dry. So I very much suspect that that little bank over there is part of a drumlin. And drumlins were formed during the last great ice age. And drumlins were like little, almost like little stony poops that were pooped out by glaciers as they moved slowly across the land. And so this beautiful gravel down here is a sign that the mound above it was, possibly is, depending on how much gravel is in it, a drumlin. You see, because it's not just the drumlins that were formed, and I'm slipping a bit here. Just excuse me while I try to, whoop, oh, there we go, up onto the dry bank. It's not just the drumlins that were formed as such, but you had kind of scarring of drumlins. So a drumlin might be formed and then part of the glacier might come along behind it and kind of push maybe the top of it off. So it doesn't actually look like a drumlin, which is what I suspect this is. But it's very dry up here. So say if you were building a little home, this would be an ideal place to build it because of the dryness. It's very well drained. Now we're looking at the Silt Pond, and you can see why it's called the Silt Pond. When I was directing John and the digger to do the landscaping here, I was aware of the hill behind the cottage, and where you have a hill that hasn't got trees on it, you're going to have a lot of runoff of water. So the plan was, in my mind's eye, to create a pond. I wanted a pond, but to have a backup system further up the waterway where the silt could be easily deposited from the water, which of course comes heavier and heavier each year due to climate change, and there is substantial climate change going on here. So if you look into that now, you can see just an enormous bank of silt, and that can be allowed to build up quite substantially, and you can go in then once every 3, 4 or 5 years and actually bucket that silt out, and it's a wonderful addition then to the land, and you can just spread it on the land. So, and of course you can see now that this pond is almost like a stream, but it's slowed down, and you can see over there the water has slowed right down. As the water slows, it's able to drop the silt out of it. So we'll walk on down now. Jack is sitting over there with his eye on the road. And you can see, of course, through the trees now. There's a lot of colour here in the gardens. Lots of willow. So the willow can go very yellow or very green or very orange. So you get this lovely palette of colours developing. So now this is the other side of the Silt Pond, and you can see now there's a very small channel there through which the water flows, and the water then continues its journey. It's still dropping silt, but not as much, because you can see that this channel certainly hasn't been silted up, nor will it. It'll keep pushing that silt back up onto the banks. So we'll walk on down, and we're now coming down towards what I called initially the lower pond, but of course this is the pond proper, so to speak. All the water on the land of Bealtaine will flow through this pond. So you can see it's quite a massive flow at the moment. And again, I've put lots of, rocks and stones at various junctures all the way through the waterways. And again, that helps to slow it down, and it helps to catch the gravel and the sediment. And there you go, it flows into the pond. Now this is very interesting, because even though I have the silt pond above, can you see the amount of sediment that's actually there? You can just see the bank of sediment that's been washed in. So again, it's ideal, you know, for bucketing out and for putting up around the trees. So you have this lovely sound of water. So even though, you know, it can be dismal weather and it can be exceedingly wet, you can still really enjoy getting out into the garden if you have any kind of a waterway. And it's quite beautiful as well. And you get this beautiful winter sun coming down through the trees and the shrubs, and just making the branches that are wet with rain, you know, sparkle. You actually see little jewels hanging on them. Now the ground isn't too wet here, I must say. Years ago, at the beginning of this project, you could barely walk this land. You would be sinking into the mud and into the bog. But the water now is being directed. It's been channeled, and sometimes, you know, those waterways have kind of insisted on going a slightly different way, and I've allowed that to happen because the water will, well, look, water has a life of its own. It's very much alive, and probably thinks as well. So here we have the water now leaving the pond. So you can see here. I've obviously got to get down and tidy up all the gunera. Lots and lots to look forward to in terms of work. So the water is now coming down, and it's carved out. Again, it seems to have carved out for itself lots of pools. So you have lots of little mini pools here, and you can see down there where the water has kind of fallen down over the rocks. It's carved out a wonderful pool. You know, and all this has happened just over 13 years, which is really amazing. Now I'm going to have to kind of go around this way in order to pick up the water course further down. So, pointing towards the pond again. So we're coming down. Jack! Jack! There we go. He says this is great, running through mud. So we're picking up the water course again just here. So you can see the driveway there and the bench on the driveway. And what I created years ago was this kind of little island. Now, over the years, of course, what's happened is that because I've created this little island, there's been wonderful big deposits again of silt and leaves and all kinds of stuff. So the topography of the land is changing just by sheer force of Mother Earth herself. You see, she's actually decided to go this way, look, and then go around that way. And if you look on that little island, you can see little habitats. They're probably water voles. So again, you know, you're trying to create as many diverse habitats as possible, and this was the whole point of working in this way. So unlike a lot of permaculturalists, I was thinking on a broader spectrum. I was thinking, before I could even name it, I was thinking of goddess permaculture, which is taking the entire environment into consideration. So it's not just about, you know, us It's not just about us. It's about Mother Earth care. Very, very much about Mother Earth care. Because I've always believed that if you can make the environment around you a happy, contented environment, then within that you're going to have enormous happiness and contentment yourself. It's a very simple philosophy, isn't it? I mean, it's so simple. We do complicate things far too much, you know. The human mind has got a propensity for overcomplication. Now, in order to get to the very end of that waterway, because you can see there's a gate through there, I'm going to go back up. I think actually what I'm going to do as well this winter is to cut a little path through there, just back to where I was pointing the camera, and see if I can't create a little path that takes me right down to where I had the big pipes, the big land pipes, drainage pipes put in underneath the driveway in order to carry all this water away. So we're coming back up now towards this lovely stream. I love the sound of water. It's just, it is magical. There's that lovely tinkling. I know where this boyo is. Jack? See? Come on. I know you're pretty savvy and all the rest of it, but Jack, come here. Now, I'm going to be very firm with you about this. Come on. He wants to sit. You see, he lies down there at the gate. He just lies down. Look, what do you see? No. What are you doing? He's fascinated with cars. Right, so now we're down here. And you can't even see the water, but you can hear it. Because I have planted as much as possible here. And just to kind of stop erosion as well. I don't want any erosion going on down at this lower level. So I have planted very intensely. And the water, of course, has found its way down, right down into its own very self-clearing channels. So it flows then underneath the driveway here and these big land pipes, which are big enough to actually walk through, and it comes out there. So it's very clean water as it leaves my property. And most of the silt, if not all of the silt, has been dropped. And then it flows down to where those trees are, and then underneath the road in pipes and down. You can just see where the farmer has fenced the waterway off, and it flows down and around those trees. Now, those trees were planted to assuage the beings that were themselves buried there. That would have been an old fort, an old Celtic fort across there. Jack, come on. He's getting ready for a car to come. Come on, up this way. No, up this way. There we go. He's going to run up here now to peep through the... Come on, up you go. Peeping at cars. You're a little car peeper, aren't you? Never mind peeping Tom, it's peeping Jack. He says, but I love cars. I think Jack wishes that he had a mummy or a daddy with a big tractor that he could just hop on the back and ride into town. Look at him watching the car.